Welcome everyone to tonight's council meeting. I'm the Mayor, Councillor Rankarasik. I declare this meeting open at 7 p.m. Due to declaration of state of emergency in Victoria and in compliance with the Local Government Act 2020, Council will be attending this council meeting by electronic means. The council chamber is closed to the members of the public for this meeting. However, this meeting is deemed open to the public by an online live stream, available through our link published on the Brimbank City Council's website. Members of the public will not be recorded in this process. Councillors, please stand for acknowledgement of country. On behalf of Brimbank City Council, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Wurundjeri people, and pay our respect to elders past, present, and emerging. I ask councillors to remain standing for the council commitment. As the council, we will act in the best interest of the Brimbank community and consider the immediate and long-term impact of our decisions. We'll make these decisions fairly and without bias. We'll uphold all of our obligations under the laws of Victoria and council's local laws, and will act in accordance with our code of conduct. Please be seated. I'm going to go to apologies. We don't have any apologies for this evening. Councillors, are there any declaration of conflict of interest for tonight's meeting? I'm going to go to item 5, designation of items as confidential. There are 3 items to be designated as confidential. May I have a mover of a motion to designate the items as confidential? Councillor Papalia?
Yes, I'd like to move the motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor. As per the screen. Thanks.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor David?
Second, Mother.
Councillor Papalia, would you like to speak to this motion?
No, thank you.
Councillor David, would you like to speak to this motion?
No, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak to this motion, councillors? I put this motion to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. I declare this motion carried. Yes, Councillor Kerr.
I'd like to propose that we bring the item 15 urgent business forward to right away as per the business papers.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Takos?
I second this recommendation. Thank you.
Councillors, all in favour, please raise your hands. Motion is carried. So I'm going to ask you, is there any urgent businesses for tonight?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I do have an item of urgent business this evening. I have an urgent report from Director Kelvin Walsh regarding a proposed development at 21A Copernicus Way, Keilor Downs. Officers had intended to provide feedback on the proposed development under delegated authority. The feedback is due by the 25th of October 2021. There has, since the distribution of the council meeting agenda on the 15th of October 2021, been a significant amount of community interest in relation to the proposed development. Accordingly, it is proposed that council provides feedback on the proposal and does so as urgent business, given the need to provide feedback by the 25th of October. In order for council to consider this matter, council will first need to resolve to admit the item as urgent business. This can only occur if the business relates to or arises out of a matter which has arisen since the distribution of the agenda and cannot safely or conveniently be deferred until the next council meeting. It is my advice to council that both these prerequisites have been met in relation to the provision of feedback on the proposed development of 21A Copernicus Way, Keilor Downs. Accordingly, I have determined, in accordance with clause 25.3 of the governance rules, that this matter is appropriate for council to consider admitting as urgent business and recommend that council admits this item as urgent business. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, CEO. Is there a mover of the motion to admit this matter as urgent business tonight? Councillor Kerr?
Yes, I'd like to move this motion as per the business papers.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor
second.
Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second that.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr, would you like to speak to this report or business papers?
Not at this stage.
Councillor Tarkus, would you like to speak to it? Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to it? Well, I put this to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. I declare this motion carried. Before I pass to Director City Development.
Oh, sorry. I was just waiting for the introduction. Sorry.
Yeah, before I pass to Director City Development to introduce this item, I would like to make some comment about the proposed development at 21A Copernicus Way in Killaloe Downs. It is important to make some comments from the Chair, as this proposal has generated a lot of community interest and brought out different views in support and against it. New housing is often contentious in existing neighbourhoods, and the council is always keen to hear the views of the community. We also know that it is important that developers listen to the community in preparing their proposals so that they understand the passion that exists in our community about what is valued in our local areas. As a council, we also recognise the importance of providing a variety of household types to ensure all members of our community have access to housing matched to their lifestyle and life stage. This includes recognising the important role that social and affordable housing plays in meeting these needs of many in our community. A roof over your head is a fundamental need for us all. In relation to the Bubcare proposal, what is important to mention at the outset is that Council is not the decision maker in relation to this proposal. The state government is the responsible authority, and the developer, Bubcare, is required to seek the view of the community and Council before submitting their application to the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning for assessment and decision by the Minister. Unfortunately, Council, like the community, have only had very short time to review the plan and arrive at the view. Despite the short time frame, our planners are able to present an assessment against the Brimbank planning scheme to this evening's council meeting as an urgent business item. What I clearly have heard that community says is the consultation on this proposal has been inadequate, and the community has not had time to consider all aspects of what is proposed. There is a lot of concern about the density of the proposal and how it will fit into the local character of the neighbourhood. There are concerns about whether, if approved, there is adequate car parking provided with the development and whether there is the right social support services in the neighbourhood to support future residents. It is so important that developers listen to the community to achieve the right outcome for the community. I thank the community for your interest in this issue, and now I would like to call Mr. Calvin Walsh to introduce this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of the report is to provide Council with an assessment of a proposed social housing development at 21A Copernicus Way in Killaloe Downs against the provisions of the Brimbank planning scheme for the purpose of providing comment to the proponents. The development is being processed under clause 52.20 of the planning scheme, and that's Victoria's big housing build. And therefore, as you mentioned, Madam Mayor, Council is not the decision maker. Rather, the Minister for Energy, Environment and Climate Change is the responsible authority. Officers recommend that Council provides feedback to the proponent of the development at Copernicus Way in Killaloe Downs to advise that Council has undertaken an assessment of the development against the provisions of the Brimbank planning scheme and has found that the development complies with the requirements subject to the recommended changes to the plans and associated documents at attachment 5 to the report that you have. Officers also recommend that Council writes to the Minister for Energy, Environment and Climate Change and the Minister for Planning to advise that Council has provided the above feedback, and also that Council determines to publicly release this report with attachments and Council's resolutions at noon tomorrow. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? Yes, Councillor Nguyen.
So Calvin, there are a couple of concerns raised by the residents in the area in relation to the number of car parks provided, as well as the potential for the development to impact on the services in the area. Can you, in your opinion, can you explain what the potential development could, how it could impact these spaces, and is the plan adequate? Oh, you're on mute, Calvin.
Sorry about that. So through you, Madam Mayor, the assessment that is attached to the report, so at attachment attachment 4, details the requirements that are in the planning, the assessment against the requirements of the planning scheme. Residents did raise concerns about car parking and the like. However, our assessment has determined that they have 19 excess car parking spaces, and that is detailed in the assessment attached.
And in relation to the development impacting the services in the area, there was a concern raised about that as well. Again,
through you, Madam Mayor. So residents did raise that as a concern that there's because of the nature of the housing and the anticipated residents there, they did raise concerns about whether there would be good connections to the support networks that would be required for residents more broadly within the local area. In terms of that location, it is adjacent to an activity centre. It sits just north of Brimbank's Health and Wellbeing Hub. So the officers have again considered the connections within the local area and determined that it is generally adequate.
thank you, Calvin.
Is there any question? Is there any more questions, councillors? Yes, Councillor David.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I usually don't ask questions of such, but it's usually the developers or the builders, before they get a permit, they have to add an advertising board for 14 days, and that's the rules or the law, if I might say. Has this been done, please?
Through you, Madam Mayor, thank you, Councillor David. So the report does detail that this proposal is being advertised under the Victoria's Big Housing Build. And in relation to that, the notification requirements are different to what would be expected of a standard planning application. However, they did provide a sign on the site and did provide a notification to surrounding areas. Again, the purpose of that notification was to advise residents of their ability to provide comment directly to the proponents. So the process that is applicable in this case is that the proponents, prior to submitting the application to the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, must demonstrate that they have consulted with the community and with council for a period of determined within the Act and within the planning scheme, and from our observations, they are meeting that obligation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Papalia.
Sorry, Calvin, this is in the report. It does mention that there's a park being put in. Do you mind just explaining if that's a park being put in by council or developers, or have I misread that? I think it was a pocket park that I read.
Madam Mayor, I might take that on notice in terms of the requirements of who would be responsible for delivery of that, and I'll provide that information to council after the council meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lancashire.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick question about traffic generation with this social housing. Normal houses, you would expect about 10 vehicle movements per day from a house. With this type of housing, do we have an idea of the number of vehicle movements per dwelling that this type of social housing would incur?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I am just I refer councillors to the full assessment in attachment 4, and within that attachment we do speak to the access and how it complies with the requirements of the Brimbank planning scheme. In terms of the measures that are applied by the comments by the traffic engineers. Again, Madam Mayor, I'll take that on notice and provide the advice to councillors in terms of the exact number of movements that we are applied.
Thank you. Any more questions? No. Do I have a mover of this motion? Councillor Kerr.
Madam Mayor, I wish to move a motion in relation to this as per the business papers.
Can someone please show on the screen? Thank you. I think that should be enough time for everyone to read. Thank you. Do I have a second of this motion? Councillor Tarkos.
Madam Mayor, I second the motion as per on the screen. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Kerr, would you like to speak to this motion?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. I submit this amended motion on behalf of the community. To date, the community has responded with over 1,100 signatures on a petition. The residents are not opposing social housing. They are concerned with the scale and density of this development. The main concerns of the community are lack of community consultation. Only the neighbours who live within 150 metres of the proposed construction were notified. The construction process also lacks sensitivity to the demographic background of the residents. A majority of those living in Killardowns represent an elderly demographic, including those within 150 metres. Most have English as their second language, and the flyer was not distributed in any other language apart from English. Also, social infrastructure, amenity and access. The additional 47 units in the proposed location flags concerns with regards to suitable access to services such as NDIS, major public hospitals and other social and community services that are already at capacity. Accountability and transparency. In the recent consultation meeting, Bapcare claimed they surveyed struggling Melburnians around the topic of their suburb of choice, reporting the overwhelming majority indicated Killardowns as their preference. Most residents are questioning the transparency of this claim and request Victorian government assistance in obtaining the survey results to verify the above to date. This information remains unavailable, unclear, and unverified of fact. There's also a concern with density and the impact of traffic and COVID-19. The addition of 47 units in a clustered fashion will add to traffic congestion and social distancing concerns. Brimbank is considered one of the areas where COVID-19 positive cases remain really high. There are currently over 1,400 cases of coronavirus in Brimbank. I understand social housing is a pressing issue and required within the community. However, specifically in Keilor Downs, we also have an ageing population, many vulnerable elderly residents and members of the community living with a disability also require urgent assistance. The community welcomes the inclusion of an aged care facility catering for the most vulnerable of residents. The community has indicated they would support a development with the number of units limited to 37 one-bedroom dwellings to cater specifically for the elderly or those with a disability. The development should also provide for more separation between the dwellings to preserve the neighbourhood character. It should include more open space, a small park, and additional canopy tree planting on the site. Improve connections to local support services, i.e. a carers hub, exercise equipment, and garden beds. The site has a proposed aged care facility, therefore units or social housing specifically for this demographic would be in line with the community requirement and also reduce the number of cars and in turn congestion on site, transforming the precinct into a hub for the elderly. With 30 or so self-contained units and an on-site aged care facility, the extra space could be used to deliver much needed services to our community. The community want confirmation the land will only be used for an aged care facility and not further high density units. The community want to see the land activated for the aging population. They want to see green spaces, trees, units that are not packed in like sardines. This piece of land has the opportunity to become an innovative and functional community asset. Trees, garden beds, gym equipment, and facilities specifically catering for the elderly and those with a disability. The residents are not against social housing. They are against the sheer density of this development. The changes proposed to this development have the ability to transform this precinct into a development the community can support and be proud of, offering the best care for residents in a location they can be proud to call home. I call on the state government to review our submission and put profits aside to consider the requirements and requests of the community. The residents are outraged over the lack of consultation and transparency. I urge my fellow councillors to support the residents of Brimbank to listen and act on their concerns. Please support our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tarkus, would you like to speak to this motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'd just like to support the words presented by Councillor Kerr, and I think that fundamentally this is not about being against social housing. It is, however, a concern that more of these types of decisions are being made by the state government without any proper consultation with our community. Our community, when we are the planning authority, have expectations that they're involved and engaged in the process, whereas from the outset, this feels as if it's been imposed on our community. And as Maria said, this is not against social housing. It's about amenity and ensuring that the community has got the support services around it. By having people living independently with a disability there, we will, as you know, building the St Albans Leisure Centre, have a proposed disability hub that will be able to support people living independently and also having services there that they can actually use. Also, we are increasingly an aged community where there is no independent living units, and this would be a great opportunity to integrate that as well. Social housing, I believe, is best when it's integrated in the community and not singled out into a one project type high density project. So in essence, I support Councillor Kerr's proposal because it finds a middle ground where we can support our community, our vulnerable community, but also ensure that there are the support services around them to support them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, does anyone else want to speak to this motion? Councillor Brenton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'm taking a couple of figures from the Homelessness Research Project, which is posted on Brimbank's webpage if you search for homelessness. Currently, there are 5,000, no, in 2019 to 2020, 5,000 people accessed homelessness services in Brimbank. So that can indicate 5,000 people in or near Brimbank that need this support. I'm of the opinion that every house you take away, that's one more person who doesn't get supported housing. And you don't get out of homelessness without a safe place to live. It's just impossible. It can't be done. And so I think any reduction in social housing is leaving someone to fend for themselves. So I can't support this. I'm sorry, Maria.
Thank you, Councillor Brenton. Anyone else would like to speak to this? Councillor Papalia and then Councillor Nguyen.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm also speaking against this amended motion. Look, this is a really tough situation, and I really do hear the concerns from our community and residents. I agree the consultation in this process has been poor, and I believe council should express concern with the way that has been handled. On the other hand, as Councillor Branton mentioned, homelessness in Brimbank is of the highest in the West, and homelessness is actually represented by 26% that are young people under 24. I think this project presents diverse housing. So from what I've read, there's 13 homes that are specific to singles, 23 of which are single story, and the other 12 of which are double story. I think housing is a barrier to so many things, including employment, and it's one of our council priorities. So I'm sorry, Maria, I can't support the amended motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Papalia. Anyone? Oh, sorry, Councillor Nguyen and then Councillor Borg.
Hello. Look, can I move an amendment to Maria's motion for consideration?
Julian, can we have you back? I think you can. Yes.
Yes, Madam Mayor. A motion to amend the motion moved by Councillor Kerr and seconded by Councillor Takos can be moved.
Thank you, Julian. Yes, Councillor Nguyen.
Yes, just hearing the debate in the chamber today, I think there is a consensus here that there has been a lack of consultation with the community. So like I'm happy with the amendment to add in part B, which requests that the proponents are required to undertake additional consultation with the local community and extend the time frame for providing comments. But I think the contention here is with part A, which is proposing here to not provide more than 37 dwellings, which is a difference from the original proposal by the development to provide 47 dwellings. My amendment would specify that to propose that, just to not reduce the number of dwellings, but to keep those additional amenities if possible, if that's reasonable. And perhaps consider fair analysis if it is required to reduce it or not. Like, sorry, if that's like clear, can you guys just put this on the screen so we can just type it out?
Can we put Councillor Kerr's motion on the screen so everyone else can see it? Thank you. We can leave this on screen for some time, but Councillor Nguyen, you can still talk to it if you would like to, or to your amended one.
But the clear thing I want to say is, like, I think the amendment I'm trying to propose here is to keep the 47 social house dwellings, but to also just ask Bernadette to consider providing these additional items at the end, which is like for more separation between the dwellings, improving the neighborhood character. Does that make sense? Like, if
so you're
you have any
proposing
questions.
to change A, which is keep 47, and keep B, C, D, E. Is that correct, Councillor Nguyen?
Yes.
Thank you. Can we stop sharing this? Do I have a second on this motion? Councillor Lancashire?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I have a question in relation to that, if I may.
Yeah.
Given that the motion is for 47 and the amended motion is for 37 single bedroom, if you want to include additional open spaces, separation, I think some concept of density reduction would possibly need to be considered to achieve that additional savings in land. Would it be possible to keep the 47 but make them single bedroom? That's the question.
So my proposal was the 47 originally proposed, which has the variety of building types.
Thank you.
Councillor Liu and then Councillor Kerr back. You unmute, Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry about that. I just want to make a quick comment on this motion, just to council fully aware. These motions we are not a planning authority, even though we are recommending the submission. It is up to the Minister of Planning to decide. What I suggest is, if we could submit the motion with the 37 and additional F, that those 10 housing which have been deducted on this site be spread out within Brimbank and other site, which they are at the moment developing as well. So we just spread out evenly. That way we're not losing any housing in our municipality, just for this site, just to as a pass, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Councillor. Before I get to you, Councillor Kerr, can I just get CEO to say something?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to clarify, I don't believe you can accept the amended motion as being put forward by Councillor Nguyen. Under our governance rules, the amendment must not directly be opposite to the motion. And I think an amendment that tries to go back to the original number of units or houses or dwellings, but still do part B, is not really consistent with the original motion. So sorry, but I'd have to say I don't believe you can accept that as an amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr and then Councillor Borg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to respond to, I guess, what's been spoken about. Now, first of all, I have 1,100 signatures from the community opposing this development. There's possibly approximately 10,000 residents within Keilor Downs. 1,100 people have opposed this development. They're not opposing social housing. I have lived in Keilor Downs since 1986. I lived next door to a social house my entire life. This house is on a 600 600 square metre block, and these residents lived with dignity and space. I don't believe that just because someone has to live in social housing, they need to be sardined and compacted into these tiny units. They deserve the same dignity as everybody else in the community. Keilor Downs has over 20 social homes already in Keilor Downs, sitting on 600 square metre blocks. These homes are original from the 1980s. They can be knocked down and they can be put 2 or 3 units on each of these properties. That will more than accommodate for the number of people that would miss out on these social housing. It would mean that these people in the community are integrated within the community. They're living a normal life. They're not compacted in like sardines. That's the first point. The second point I'd like to make is we are disturbing the integrity of Keilor Downs.
You've got 1 minute in your right to reply, Councillor. Councillor Kerr, you've got 1 minute.
Thank you. This is an ageing population. We need to cater for the most disadvantaged in our community. These are the elderly. These are people living with disabilities. These are people that need to be close to amenities, medical facilities. We are not against social housing. We're about integrating social housing into the greater community. We're not about succumbing to the state Labor government who is pushing these projects into the safe seat in this area. Our residents have spoken, 1,100 residents, and I urge the councillors to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Borg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to, sorry, the dog is barking in the background. I will not supporting Councillor Kerr's motion. As already mentioned, social housing is very much needed in Brimbank. Brimbank house, lot of people are finding it hard to meet their basic needs, including food and shelter. Marginalized groups such as women, single parents, people with disability are finding it hard to find accommodation and stay off the streets. Brimbank Housing Strategy notes that housing affordability is not just about the price of housing, but also its location. The site for the proposed social housing is adjacent, as already mentioned, to a large shopping center that includes a medical center and a variety of food retailers and other services. It is also a few meters away from the future aquatic and wellness center, which will provide a variety of health and well-being services. I would also like to point out that the proposed buildings, most of them can be used for people with disability, especially the one floor buildings. It is also within walking distance between public transport, namely buses and the train. Council has undergone various assessments and is satisfied that the proposed permit meets all the requirements, and there could be some changes or rather some conditions attached, but overall council has approved of these social housing being built on this site.
Thank you, Councillor Borg. Anyone else would like to speak to Councillor Kerr's motion? Councillor Nguyen, and then Councillor David, and then Councillor Lancashire. Councillor Borg, can you put your hand down, please? Thank you.
Hello, Madam Mayor. I would like to speak against the motion. Before, I was just requesting to provide an amendment. Look, unfortunately, I would have to speak against this motion due to the reasons mentioned before. Social housing is required. It's needed in Brimbank. As Councillor Papala mentioned before, Brimbank is the municipality with the highest rates of homelessness in Melbourne's West. And I totally agree that the housing that we provide needs to be adequate for people with disabilities and for the elderly as well. But social housing, there is a very diverse number of people who need social housing. And furthermore, based on the answers to the questions I asked before with Director Kelvin Walsh, it's shown that there is adequate car parking. In fact, there is a surplus of 19 car spots. And also, it will be in close amenity to the services that are needed for the community, which is, nearby the medical hub, the care services nearby.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. Why are we discussing this after it's been closed?
Sorry, I will a point of order for all of you because everyone had, Councillor Kerr had a 2 minutes right to reply, and Councillor Borg already spoke. Councillor Nguyen tried to amend that motion. So you speaking to this motion, Councillor Kerr's motion, you've got 1 minute and 30 seconds. So use it wisely. Thank you.
I just raised my point. I think we should be supporting social housing, and if we reduce the number of dwellings, that's less people who will be able to access an affordable house. Thank you.
Councillor David.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm a little bit confused as we work very hard as councillors and officers and our directors for the last 2 years now. And 6 months ago, we started, or just before 6 months, we started our plan for the next 4 years. And every time we met, consultations with residents and all, the word affordable housing came up every time. And I in all respect to Councillor Kerr, and I understand it's her area, it's a ward councillor there, he lives in the area. But at the same time, to me, I received 3 or 4 different emails from the residents there. One of them is very demanding by saying, this is my area, and I quote out of it, this is my area. I'm proud of the area I live. I fear for the future of Kilo Downs. If this proposal is approved and built, putting aside the desired social circumstances that will flow, what a waste of an otherwise perfect block of land that could be used to improve the area even more. Why can't we use it for restaurants, cafes, cinemas, like the Station Street in Water Gardens? So in other words, they don't want anything like that, even housing at all, or whatever. So look, I think it's true what I heard a couple of councillors say, and I never thought I lived the years that I see people sleep in the streets in sunshine and in Alfreda Street. I think that's terrible. I don't want to see them. And when I do see things like that, I feel sorry because as a young man, I used to watch them in the city. And I thought to myself, what a terrible thing to see. But we see them right in our city now. And we have to work on it. And everybody's speaking about affordable housing. And these people, we've got more migrants coming into Melbourne, Victoria. So all these people, they haven't got any housing to get into. So it's a must for us to support it.
Thank you, Councillor David. Councillor Lancashire.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This area around Keilor Downs, and of course where we're rebuilding our leisure centre and wellness centre, is certainly an appropriate location for more intensive residential development. And in terms of the issue of affordable housing or social housing, we have seen as councillors a number of presentations and in my case running back 4 years of the obvious significant need for social housing and affordable housing, but particularly social housing. The proposal here to put social housing, which is clearly needed, close to a district shopping centre and our leisure centre with its wellness facilities and other facilities like medical centres nearby would seem to be an appropriate thing to do. And of course, I can relate to the residents in Thornhill Drive having that amount of access through their area. It's been basically almost a court bowl, and now they've got this large development. So I can understand why we've got the objections that we've got and some local concerns. So that it's a complex issue to deal with. And I think when it really boils down to it, from all the comments that have been made by my fellow councillors, it is on balance. I have to say that I would support the officer's recommendation, but certainly voice my concern of the lack of consultation that has occurred. Taking it out of our hands by the state government is a real disappointment, upsetting to our residents, and ensures that we have very little standing in terms of our input.
1 minute left.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and very little input into the design issues. However, having said that, I would have to agree with the sentiments raised of supporting the officer recommendation. Therefore, I would not be supporting the amendment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Just before I talk further, just want to let everyone know and refresh everyone's memory. Mover has 5 minutes. Everyone else has got 3 minutes. Mover has got a right of reply for 2 minutes. And if you speak already once, you can't speak again. And if you do have a question, you can ask the question. Thank you all. So does anyone else want to ask any question to the officers, or I put this motion to vote? All in favour, please raise.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I would like to ask a question to the officers.
Yep.
I would like to ask the officers what is going to be done about the lack of transparency, the lack of consultation to our residents. The majority of residents in the area did not receive the letter, and if they did receive the letter, they could not read the letter because it wasn't in their first language. So what are we going to do as a council to support our residents?
Through you, Madam Mayor, and without preempting what the decision of the council may be, if Councillor Kerr's motion is lost, council may wish to amend the officer recommendation and include the changes that were in Councillor Kerr's motion at Part B. So a councillor who moves the motion may wish to request that the proponents are required to undertake additional consultation with the local community as per what Councillor Kerr included in her proposed motion that's currently under debate. But of course, I would leave that to council to determine.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr, do you have a question again?
Sorry, I do have a question. My question is to officers. The notice of the development was placed in such an obscure place in the development that none of the residents, due to COVID restrictions, had ever a chance of seeing this. What are we going to do as a council to rectify this issue?
Through you, Madam Mayor, as I advised in introducing the matter, the council is not the responsible authority for this in relation to this matter. The Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, through the planning scheme, has set the process in relation to big housing build programs, and therefore it is a matter for the state.
Thank you. Councillor Liu, do you have a question?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Just quickly to the Director. I just want to clarify, this is social housing or affordable housing, this particular block?
It is social housing. Through you, Madam Mayor, in response to Councillor Liu's question, it is social housing.
Thank you.
Councillor David, do you have a question?
Just to clarify as to what we're voting for, Madam Mayor.
Sorry?
What are we voting?
Nothing
the
yet.
officers,
Just,
the
we're discussing Councillor Kerr's amended motion still. And I would like, before we go to the votes, I would like to ask governance to share Councillor Kerr's motion again on the screen, please. So everyone is sure of, that's it. So everyone can have a second read and just make sure they understood everything. Thank you. So I'll put this motion to vote now. All in favour of this, of Councillor Kerr's amended motion, please raise your hand. I declare this motion lost. So we would have to go back to our original motion. I would like to invite Director Kelvin Walsh or just to share on the screen. That was original motion that was proposed by council. So everyone can see and read if they need to. So I would like to ask councillors, does anyone wish to move a motion? Yes, Councillor Lancashire. Please unmute.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to propose a motion with the additional component that was referred to by the Director, Calvin Welsh, for additional consultation. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would put the alternate motion that's on the screen. Thank you.
Councillor Lancashire, we've got it on the screen. Can you please specify amendment?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The recommendation that's on the screen with the addition under Part B and requests that the proponents are required to undertake additional consultation with the local community and extend the time frame for providing comments. The rest of the motion remains as is. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lancashire. Do I have a seconder of amended motion? Councillor Liu?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Lancashire, would you like to speak to your amended motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. We've certainly had a lot of debate on this issue. There's been a massive amount of community objection to it. We also realise that we have social responsibilities. As pointed out, the need for social housing is irrefutable, and this certainly is a prominent location, a good location for this type of housing to occur. it has some difficulties. However, I think there's a lot to be gained on extending the consultation, requesting an extension to that consultation, so that we can engage as much with the community as possible on these issues. I believe we would do that if we'd been able to have a normal time frame and normal responsibilities as a responsible authority to consider this matter. So I do support the additional consultation, given the considerable degree, of public concern to undertake that additional public consultation. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
It happens to all of us. Councillor Liu, would you like to speak to Councillor Lancashire's amended motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to concur Councillor Lancashire's amendment. I do agree we need more consultations. Just so residents know that this is not the only site which social housing or for housing is under the big bill in our city. There's other wards that have a similar site, and I hope they'll have similar consultation so residents understand what's going on, and also hopefully different language as well, not just English, just to make it more transparent for people to know what's going on. That's it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Liu. Councillor David?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not against the mover and the secondary such, but I think this type of consultations happens before actually permit or before the reports come before the councillors. What we're doing now, we're organizing a wall. That's what it is, a community wall. That's what we're organizing. Let's try to understand that. That's what will happen. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I just see Councillor Kerr came back. Can we just check your sound, Councillor Kerr?
Thank you. I was just having some internet issues. I just had to reboot my modem. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak to Councillor Bruce's amended motion? Councillor Nguyen?
Yeah, I would just like to say, yeah, the community does need more consultation, but look, I think we as a council should be thinking about the community as a whole. We need to think about the social interests of everyone, and there are people out there who don't have a voice or are not as vocal. So look, I support Bruce's amended motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor David, can you put your hand up? And Councillor Kerr, would you like to speak to this motion? Yeah.
I would, Madam Mayor, I would like to say that, you know, these councillors are speaking, but do any of them actually live in Keilor Downs? And the answer to that question is no. I live in Keilor Downs. I live off Copernicus. I think that these issues are best resolved by people that are actually affected personally. And I think it's really easy to put your hand up like, you know, Councillor Jasmine Nguyen lives in Taylors Lakes. Councillor Bruce Lancashire lives in... No one else lives in Keilor Downs. I live in Keilor Downs. I understand the demographics. I've been in this area since 1986. I understand the needs of this community. I'm listening to the community. The community needs social housing, yes, but it needs social housing for the elderly. And that's what I'd like to say, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
I would just say that Councillor Nguyen doesn't live in Taylors Lakes. She lives in Sunshine. I wasn't sure if you lived in Keilor, Councillor Kerr, but that doesn't matter. We do support.
My house is in Keilor Downs. Thank you. It's on in Harricott Court in Keilor Downs. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak to this motion? All right, we're going to put Councillor Lancashire's amended motion to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. I declare this motion carried. We're going to now move to confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. May I have a move of motion to confirm the minutes of the previous council meeting? Councillor Lou.
I move for business paper, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Borg.
I second the motion as per business papers.
Thank you. Councillor Lou, would you like to speak to this motion?
No, thank you.
Councillor Borg.
No, thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak to this motion, councillors? I put this motion to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. I declare this motion carried. We're going to go to item 7, which is condolences, and there are no condolences tonight. Item 8 is congratulations. There are no congratulations. We're going to go to item 9 now, which is public question time. Mr. Sikalia, I understand we have received questions from members of the public. We have received a significant numbers of questions and may not have time in this meeting to read out and answer them all. Officers will provide written response to those questions we do not have time to read out and answer in this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The first question, Madam Mayor, is from Kelly Banco, who asks, this year the council has planted roughly 600 trees in Albion, despite allocating 1,600 trees to the area as part of the same project. I would like to know where and when will these missing trees be planted?
Council has planted 600 trees in Albion, completing the total number planned within the 2021 tree planting program.
Madam Mayor, the second question is from Bridget Strauss, who asks, Brimbank Council's submission to the Western Region Land Use Framework Plan makes it clear on page 5 that at Solomon Heights, the environmental values are so significant they may not be able to be developed. Is it now Council's position that no development will ever be permitted at Solomon Heights, given that Council has nominated Solomon Heights as a regionally significant industrial precinct with significant impediments to development? There are nearly 200 Solomon Heights landowners who will be affected by such a significant change in council policy who have not been consulted.
No, it's not council's position that no development will ever be permitted at Solomon Heights. However, landowners would be required to undertake further investigations, such as an environmental strategic assessment to determine the development potential, if any, of the Solomon Heights precinct.
The second question from Bridget Strauss, Madam Mayor, is if no development is ever intended to be permitted at Solomon Heights, when will Council undertake a compulsory acquisition of the affected lots? Many landowners have owned their lots for several decades and have incurred a significant economic opportunity cost for being unable to develop their land. A clear decision on this issue from Council once and for all is urgently needed.
Council has no current plans to undertake compulsory acquisition of land at Solomon Heights.
Madam Mayor, the next submission is from Thamira Sangeeth. The submission does not contain a question and will accordingly not be read out, and a response will not be provided at this meeting. Madam Mayor, the next submission is from Kathy Song. Kathy Song's submission does not contain a question, and the submission will not be read out, and a response will not be provided at this meeting. The next question, Madam Mayor, is from Tim Everett, who asks, today I went for a walk along Cororoit Creek, and just before the boulevard on Kimberley Road, I found 2 dead lizards. I suspect they have died due to poison, as it was 2 weeks ago that this area was sprayed. I would like to know why Council sprays weed and long grass instead of slashing it every couple of weeks to keep it down. Why do our native habitat have to suffer the consequences of you spraying poison, and what of our own health when we live so close to the creek?
I have been advised that Melbourne Water recently conducted debris removal and weed control works along the riparian zone at this location. You can contact Melbourne Water on 131 722 for further information.
The next question, Madam Mayor, is from Despina Havelas. Reference page 137 of Annual Report 20/21. State government funding for the Jobs Victoria Advocates project to employ 2 advocates over 2 years to assist local job keepers prepare for and secure employment. How can the Brimbank community find them, and is their role full-time or part-time?
The Jobs Victoria advocates are full-time. Community members can contact Brimbank Learning Futures on 9249 4116 for information about a Zoom or telephone session with the job advocates. Once restrictions ease, the job advocates will be available to meet face-to-face with residents at a range of community locations such as libraries and neighbourhood houses.
The second question from Despina Havelas is Defence, page 137 of Annual Budget 20/21. There are 2 dot points for 8 million for 165 people to be employed in Brimbank. Are these roles full-time or part-time for the 2 lots of 8 million allocated?
These roles were a mix of full-time and part-time, employed for 6 months under the state government funding Working for Victoria program.
The next question is from Irene Stokes, President of the Brimbank Ratepayers and Residents Association, who asks, on 16th September, the Brimbank Ratepayers and Residents Association emailed all councillors and senior council officers a proposal requesting increased accountability and transparency from this council. To date, there has been no reply either from councillors, the CEO or the Director of Community Engagement, despite follow-up emails. Can the Mayor please confirm if this council intends to listen to the Brimbank community and implement monthly public forums or ward forums as suggested, in line with what other municipalities are doing?
I can confirm your email has been received and noted. Council engages in a wide range of community engagement activities and will continue to do so.
The next question, Madam Mayor, is again from Irene Stokes, who asks, can the Mayor please confirm the cost of the Council's sponsorship of multicultural radio station 3ZZZ and what this sponsorship entails?
Council does not have a sponsorship arrangements with 3ZZZ.
The next question, Madam Mayor, is from Graham Bloor, who asks, given that Development Victoria have committed only 3,100 trees to the new Canley estate, will Council look to match that figure for the site and explore other sources for further tree numbers to address the major heat effects of the WRR heatsink?
The total number of trees to be provided in this development is currently unknown, as Development Victoria has submitted their proposed amendment to the Minister of Planning. Council will be seeking at least 30% canopy cover, which is consistent with the Brimbank Urban Forest Strategy.
Madam Mayor, the second question from Graham Bloor deals with the subject matter already answered in P145/2021 at the Council meeting on 21 September 2021.
I've determined that this question deals with subject matter already answered in P145/2021 at the Council meeting on 21st September 2021. Accordingly, I have disallowed this question on the basis of closure 57.12.3 of the governance rule, and the question will not be read out or responded to.
The next submission, Madam Mayor, is from Belinda Gajoni. Belinda Gajoni's submission does not contain a question, and the submission will not be read out, and a response will not be provided at this meeting. The next question, Madam Mayor, is from Jamie Ramsey, who asks, given the upcoming council meeting is the last meeting before the mayoral vote, can this council reassure residents that this mayoral vote will be decided on whom is most qualified at this time to lead Brimbank through demonstrated engagement with the whole community rather than selection based on political deals?
The Local Government Act provides that any councillor is eligible for election or re-election to the office of mayor.
Second question, Madam Mayor, is again from Jamie Ramsey, who asks, can this council reassure residents that no deals have been discussed and/or will not be made as to whom the mayors of Brimbank Council will be for the next 3 years?
The Local Government Act provides that the election of the mayor must be conducted in accordance with the Local Governance Act and a council's governance rules.
The penultimate question, Madam Mayor, is from John Heddich, who asks, the recent VAGO report, Integrated Transport Planning brackets August 2021, identified numerous planning problems occurring in DOT, with many of them now obvious in transport plans for the Sunshine Albion Rail Corridor and local precincts. Given that this poorly sequenced and poorly integrated transport and land use planning is expected to significantly diminish investment appetite in the transformation of Sunshine and Brimbank more widely, is Council considering making a request to the federal and Victorian governments to pause Marl and conduct a short, intensive expert review of the integrated planning for Marl and the Western Rail Plan in the Sunshine Albion corridor before known problems are built in?
No, however, Council continues to lobby the state government to deliver outcomes aligned with the Transforming Brimbank Vision 2050.
Madam Mayor, the final question is from John Heddich, who asks, Sunshine is the only precinct in Victoria with the prestigious National Employment and Innovation Cluster (NEIC), Metropolitan Activity Centre (MAC), and priority precinct classifications, yet most of the objectives associated with them remain unrealised. It is also the only transport priority precinct not being planned as a joint business and transport priority precinct. Given these prestigious classifications and the Council's transformation agenda, is Council working with VPA to finalise the current draft NEIC and with Department, Premier and Cabinet to have Sunshine planned as a joined up business and transport priority precinct like the other transport precincts in Arden and Richmond to Docklands?
No, Council continues to work with the Department of Transport as the state government's lead agency responsible for planning the Sunshine National Employment and Innovation Cluster.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are no other public questions.
So we're going to go to item 10, which is petitions. There are no petitions to be received. Moving to item 11, minutes report of the delegated committees. There are no minutes or reports of delegated committees. We're going to go to officers' reports. There are 14 officers' reports for consideration by Council tonight. We're going to go first to report 12.1, which is annual report. In accordance, in introducing this report, I'm pleased to advise that as required under the Local Government Act 2020, Brimbank Council lodged its annual report for 2020-2021 with the Minister for Local Government last month. I am very proud of the work Council has done over the previous financial year to support our community, to advocate for its needs and to shape a brighter future for our municipality and its people. The annual report attached details and extraordinary response to an extraordinary period. As would be expected, Council focus has been on supporting our community to get through the pandemic, modifying our services and advocating for government help to support our COVID recovery, advocating to get the best outcome for our city from the big infrastructure project being planned by state and federal governments, including the Melbourne Airport Rail Project and the Fix the Calder campaign, and planning for the future needs of our community, speaking to unlock the investment, economic, health and jobs potential across Brimbank. I encourage community members to download the annual report from our website for further details within both the service performance report and the audit financials. Before commending this report to Council for endorsement, I would like to thank my fellow councillors and the administration and staff for working so hard to help our community under such difficult conditions. I would now ask Mr. Dan Hogan to talk to this report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very simply, the officer recommendation to this report is for the adoption of the Brimbank City Council Annual Report 2020-2021 as attached at Appendix 1. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director on this report? Do I have a mover? Councillor Takos.
I move the officer recommendation. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Brenton.
Yep, seconded.
Councillor Takis, would you like to speak to this report?
Just briefly, Madam Mayor, I'd just like to say with my COVID response and recovery hat, I'd like to report that Council is progressing in the phase 2 of the Brimbank response and recovery, which is basically how Council can assist our local businesses and our residents and our visitors to overcome the obstacles and build strengths as we continue to recover, rebuild and adjust our lives, reopening and the new COVID normal. But more importantly, that this council has been committed to pivoting and to rising to the challenges that face us in these really complex and difficult times. And we respond in creative, in innovative ways. I'd like to thank the council and also all the services that have really risen up during this difficult and challenging time as we emerge out of it, to respond to needs through food parcels, through support through libraries, through youth engagement, and continue to engage people with mental health and so many other supports and creative ways, actually. And I fully endorse this annual report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Takis. Councillor Brenton, would you like to speak to this report?
Just to say that a couple of really great figures out of the report is we've spent 2.7 million to better playgrounds, parks, and where was the other great one? 38 million on sporting facilities, amazing, which I suspect that includes the Brimbank Wellness Centre. And my favourite is 1.37 million for improvements to community facilities such as neighbourhood houses, libraries and children's centres. I think that's great.
Thank you, Councillor Branton. Councillor Bourke?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is quite a comprehensive report. I thoroughly enjoyed going through it, having been involved in the development of the Council Plan 2017-2021. It's great to see Council achieving its objectives and completing the actions and activities that it set out to achieve. Considering the COVID-19 pandemic and its implications, this is quite a satisfactory achievement. I would like to acknowledge all the hard work and thank everyone involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bourke. Would anyone else like to speak to this report, councillors? I put this report to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. I declare it carried. So we're going to go to 12.2, final draft Together We Are Brimbank, Council Plan 2021-2025, Community Vision 2040, Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan. After much work and collaborative debate, I'm very pleased to be introducing the new Council Plan and Community Vision 2021-2050, titled Together We Are Brimbank. We should be very proud of Together We Are Brimbank, a plan that captures our aspirations of the Brimbank community, and a plan that will guide our work and that of the entire council staff over the next 4 years. Together We Are Brimbank combines for the first time the council plan and municipal public health and wellbeing plan. It also includes new vision for our beautiful city and community, a transformed Brimbank that is beautiful, thriving, healthy and connected. The plan sets out how council will work together, achieving this vision through 4 key strategic directions: people and community, places and spaces, opportunity and prosperity, and leadership and governance. I would like to thank everyone who has taken the time to share their aspirations and ideas, which have been used as the foundation of this plan, and who have provided feedback about the draft. We are much appreciate your contribution that has inspired this work. Thank you. Now I'll just ask Ms. Lindley Dumble to present this report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Local Government Act 2020 requires councils to have adopted both a community vision and council plan by the 31st of October 2021. In line with the Public Health and Wellbeing Act 2008, councils are also required to renew their municipal public health and wellbeing plan every 4 years. The final draft, Together We Are Brimbank, presented to council tonight for consideration, brings these 3 key strategic documents into a single integrated plan while addressing the associated legislative requirements. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. Does anyone have a question for the director? Thank you. Do I have a move of this motion? Councillor Brenton?
Yeah, I move the motion as per the papers.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Takos?
I second the report as per business papers. Thank you.
Councillor Branton, would you like to speak to this report?
Yeah, it's really exciting that mental health was one of my big priorities going into being a councillor, and then to find that it's a big priority for pretty much, well, I think the whole council, and now the first priority in the health and wellness portion of this plan is to support improved mental wellbeing. And although it's a new space for council to be moving into, and it's not local government's responsibility, I'm really excited that we're being proactive and finding ways that we can interact in that space.
Thank you, Councillor Brenton. Councillor Takos, would you like to speak to this motion or this report?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Only to support what Councillor Branton said, but I also seeking what the feedback of the community is, which is really supportive as we weave this into what our own strategies are. So some of the things that were brought up by the community was information about the Sunshine Priority Precinct Vision 2050. Strengthening Brimbank's heritage values is an important priority. Recognition of the importance of the neighbourhood, how important our neighbourhoods are. Adding carers, people with disability and older people to the health and wellbeing priority, and also people of diverse backgrounds. Support for our strategies relating to improving mental health is a standout, as Councillor Branton said, as well as supporting community access to jobs and education, and improving digital access and inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Takos. Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this report? Councillor Borg?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Great to see this final draft of this document coming to Council for endorsement. It incorporates a compelling vision that captures aspirations for Brimbank community for the next 4 years. As stated in this document, people and community are the heart of Brimbank. There is a strong focus on health and well-being, including mental health, climate change and its impact on health, and increasing healthy eating, active living, and physical activity. Supporting increased gender equality and reducing gender-based violence is also a priority. So is support economic and social inclusion. At a glance, the job ahead of us is quite challenging. However, the strategic directions embedded in this document will facilitate this journey and will lead us to achieving our vision. So will the combined efforts of council and community, as together we are Brimbank.
Thank you, Councillor Borg. Anyone else who would like to speak to this report or to this motion? If not, I put this motion to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. I declare this motion carried. We're going to go to 12.3, Planning Activity Update and Delegate Decisions, September 2021. And Mr. Kelvin Walsh, thank you.
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of the report is to provide council information on the status of planning permit applications and trends in planning approvals in Brimbank and decisions made under delegated authority during September 2021 regarding planning permit applications and other matters. The officers recommend that council notes the activity report and the delegated decisions included at attachment 1 to this report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, does anyone have any questions for the Director? Thank you. If not, do I have a mover of this? Councillor Lancashire?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the officer's recommendation in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Branton?
Yep, second.
Councillor Lancashire, would you like to speak to this report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Briefly, it is noted in the report an interesting appeal against a delegated decision to refuse to grant a permit for the partial demolition and construction of buildings and works to convert an existing building in a heritage area into 34 dwellings, removal of vegetation and reduction in the standard car parking requirement was unsuccessful, with VCAT ordering that no permit be issued for the development at 6 to 18 Alexandra Avenue Sunshine. So I'm certainly pleased to see council's success at VCAT. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Branton?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this report? Okay, I'll put this motion to vote. All in favour, raise your hands, please. Thank you. I'm going to 12.4, planning compliance activity update, 1st July to 30th of September 2021. Mr. Kelvin Walsh, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a quarterly report, and the purpose of the report is for council to note the planning compliance activity during the period you just mentioned, and the officers recommend that councillors note the planning compliance activity report for that period. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, does anyone have any questions for the Director? Do I have a mover of this report? Councillor Lancashire?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the officer's recommendation in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Papalia?
Thanks. I second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lancashire, would you like to speak to this report?
No, I recommend the report to council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Papalia, would you like to speak to this report?
No, thank you.
Now, councillors, anyone else wishes to speak to this report? I will put this report to vote then. All in favour, please raise your hands. Sorry, yep, 10 in favour, it's carried. We're going to go to 12.5, planning application, P341 2020 and P386/2020 for 32A Green Gully Road, Kilo. Mr. Kelvin Walsh, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide council with an assessment of the development plan application P138/2020 and the concurrent planning permit application P341/2020 for the purpose of use and development of the land for a residential aged care facility with the within the Melbourne Airport Environs Overlay Schedule 2, a removal of native vegetation and access alterations to a road in a road zone category 1 at 32A Green Gully Road, Keilor. The officer's recommendation is that council consents to the approval of the development plan as based on the plans at attachment 4, consents to the granting of the planning permit P341/2020 as detailed in the introduction, and advises VCAT, the applicant, Melbourne Airport, and all submitters that council consents to the approvals, and writes to the head of Transport for Victoria, requesting that the consideration be given to installing a signalised intersection on Green Gully Road. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? Do I have a mover of this motion, councillors? Councillor Lancashire.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would move the officer's recommendation as in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Takos.
I second the recommendation, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Lancashire, would you like to speak to this report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. We had, of course, the planning forum, and the developers spoke at the planning forum, and submitters, objectors also spoke. So I would certainly like to start by thanking all those that made submissions to councillors. It was much appreciated and very informative. Complicated site with a development plan and planning permit. And certainly a long, complicated history. I can say that I used to, before moving to Taylor's Lakes, lived a little bit down the road on Green Gully Road near this, and would have walked past this many times. And of course, my children would have played in the park at the back. And it was interesting to hear a proponent who had been involved in the park over a very long period of time, including potentially the time my children were playing in that park. The difficulty in negotiations, of course, with the airport, and I understand that the airport has withdrawn their objection to it, as a rather large portion of the back of the site is set aside as non-residential, as open space, with access permeating through to the adjoining park. So it is not a gated community. It is a community which is accessible for people to wander through from the park and from adjoining areas through the site. I particularly like the concept of the single-story units and the nursing home. Being a little bit older as I am, but I must admit, for a long time, I have supported the concept of being able to retire and live close to, particularly with you, if one partner moves into a nursing home, the idea that you could do that and still be nearby a loved one is a very appealing concept, and it doesn't happen all that often. This is not a normal requirement under state law or any law to ensure that this retiring and living in place can occur. So on that regard, I think this is a good development. It has been downsized from earlier options, and while there's obviously some concerns from the neighbours about it, I would certainly recommend the officer's recommendation to my fellow councillors. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Takos, would you like to speak to this report?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I also attended the planning forum, and I've read all the submissions, and I understand that people do have concerns whenever a development like this happens in terms of the traffic management concerns with Green Gully being a very high volume traffic road. However, Madam Mayor, one of the roles of council is to look at our service delivery from cradle to aged care and the full life cycle, as we say, of services. And one of the most integral issues we have at the moment is an inadequacy to meet the needs of our aged population, particularly in the Keilor area. There is a growing need for aged care facilities in Keilor and surrounds. And after attending the planning forum, but also reading the report, I am satisfied that this development plan for aged care facility is needed, desperately needed. I'm also satisfied that the amendments made by the council since the original application, which includes the traffic management treatment, such as the roundabout at Solomon Drive and the side access, will reduce the concerns with traffic issues on Green Gully Road. Also, that proper steps in ensuring that the noise mitigation from the aviation noise by configuring that the higher density is outside the aviation MAEO so that it reduces the impact of noise, and also the treatments for acoustics to make sure that all of that complies with the airport's expectations, that this is a good outcome that will do its part in meeting the demand for a mix of good aged
1 minute left.
The preservation and conservation of Solomon Drive was also a priority for myself. I know that this reserve is dearly loved by the local community and has been looked after by the local community, and will continue to do so. It will create great enjoyment for many of the people from the aged care who can also visit this. So I fully endorse this plan by council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tarkus. Councillors, does anyone else want to speak to this report? Councillor Borg and then Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Brimbank is experiencing an aging population. As such, this proposed aging facility is much needed in the area. A number of amendments have been made to the proposal since the original applications were refused. In addition, the planning permit is also subject to conditions in relation to, but not limited to, car parking, amenity, aged care, landscaping, and environmental sustainable design. I therefore support this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to concur with my councillors, it's obviously that our city, municipality, has an aging population. There's no doubt about that. It's not just Keilor, it's the whole municipality, all the way down to the south. It's an aged community, and we do need facility like this. So I'd like to accept that. I'd like to congratulate the staff to assisting the applicants to get to this stage, and congratulate the applicants to have done a good job with the airport negotiating the proposal. Secondly, it's something our municipality need, and it's just not one area. We're very lucky to have see like this. I understand there's parks in the area and there's people in the area who are concerned related to that, but you must understand that there are residents who grew up in this area, and once they have come to a stage where they need to go to aging facility, they do not want to travel a far distance away from their home, the location where they grew up with or live with, and then the finality of the place. So in a municipality, we need aged care facilities all over a whole spectrum, not just one area. So I welcome this, and I fully support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to concur with the sentiments of the other councillors. It is obvious that our area requires some more aged care facilities, just like the proposal for Keilor Downs. Apart from this proposal being private, there's also a requirement for public aged care facilities also. So I'd just like to make that point. All these councillors supporting this, but also, you know, obviously there's a requirement for aged care facilities for everybody to attain, not just people that can afford to be in private facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, does anyone else want to speak to this report? All right, we're going to put this report to a vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. I declare this motion carried. I'm going to go to 12.6, planning application P58/2021 for 19 Barraway Crescent, Taylors Lakes, with Mr. Kelvin Walsh. Thank you.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide council with an assessment of the planning application P58/2021 for the construction of 4 double-storey dwellings at 9 Barraway Crescent, Taylors Lakes, against the provisions of the Brimbank planning scheme. Officers recommend to council that they issue a notice of decision to grant the planning permit, subject to a range of conditions that are detailed in attachment 5 to the report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? Do I have a mover of this motion? Councillor Lancashire.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would move the recommendation as in the officer's report. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lou.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Lancashire, would you like to speak to this motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, as with the previous application, we had the pleasure of meeting the applicant and objectors and hearing their points of view, and we very much again appreciate the information that these people provided in helping us form our decision in relation to this proposal. This proposal, of course, was originally a 5-unit development, and it has been reduced down through negotiation through to a 4-unit development. And I think that has allowed a significant improvement in terms of setbacks and our building articulation, which have improved the quality and visual appearance of this building. It is noted that there is one building at the front. So in terms of the streetscape, it does present as just another house in the street, with a garage, of course, on one side, but a driveway to the 3 dwellings at the rear. Again, the shape of the lot has facilitated that, but that's also nice to see in terms of minimising its impact on the streetscape. There are substantial setbacks along the south-western boundary and setbacks from adjoining residential boundaries. So I think the end result that has been negotiated here is a definite improvement over the earlier version. I do appreciate there were still objections to it, but it is certainly an improvement. So on that basis, I would recommend to my fellow councillors the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Lou.
Thank you,
Would you
Madam
like
Mayor.
to speak to this?
Sorry, Madam Mayor. Yeah, thank you. It's not very often that planning application actually come to councils, mainly because we can't council is based up a lot of objections. And having observed this and attended a planning forum and seen the original plan and this current plan, it's very encouraging to see the good work the officers are facilitating with the applicants to get found from rejection to this current plan. And it's very encouraging that those plans that doesn't go to council, that I know it is most of the plan approved are not rubber stamped, because this is a good example of it. I'm very conscious of lesson to privacies, lesson to look over it, and having reviewed both plan, the original plan and the current plan now, and the reduction and the improvement has done with the council's staff to facilitate with the applicants. It's very encouraging to see. And I understand there's still some objection with the development. Unfortunately, it's ongoing development, and necessarily it will be continued developed with housing. But with the submission now, it's quite adequate lesson to the applicant's submission, and I fully support the lesson to the applicants at the moment. I hope the council's review and support it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lou. Councillor Kerr.
I would like to speak in relation to opposing this. I'm really conscious of the community opposition to this development. Having lived in the area since 1986, Bowery Crescent has always been, you know, a lovely tree-lined street full of young families, and people have purchased these properties knowing that they have purchased large blocks and, you know, without the idea of development in mind. And I'd really like to, you know, keep the integrity of this area and the character of this area. So I strongly oppose this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Would anyone else like to speak to Councillor Borg?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to support this report. Changes have been made to consider the plans to address the shortcomings which were previously identified by VCAT. The application is subject to further conditions that need to be met. The report includes a detailed assessment, which I believe has a strategic justification and policy support.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this motion? Councillor Lancashire, you have 2 minutes right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the points I'd made earlier are sufficient and would stand with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, I'll put this motion to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. I declare this motion carried. We're going to move to 12.7, submission to Western Land Use Framework Plan. Mr. Kelvin Walsh, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider the final draft submission to the Department of Environmental, Land, Water and Planning's Western Metro Land Use Framework Plan, as shown at attachment 1 in the agenda papers. The officer recommendation is that Council endorses the submission at attachment 1 and enables us to submit it to DELP by their engagement website by the 24th of October. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? Can I have a move of this motion? Councillor Tarkos?
I move the motion as per governance papers. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Brenton?
Move the motion.
Councillor Tarkos, would you like to speak to this motion?
Yeah, a few words, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank firstly Kelvin and his staff for such a great submission. I attended this forum, which was quite interesting, Madam Mayor, but on one level I felt it missed in capturing the great potential which exists in the West, and indeed the importance that this council retain its very strategic planning role and planning powers. It's a real concern if the state assumes greater planning control, particularly as we are seeing at the moment with some plans, and the lack of community engagement leads to alienation. And as a council, we should be an integral part of any planning process that impacts our community. For me, the biggest issue and takeout from this particular forum was integrated transport. There should be a greater recognition of transport disadvantage in our community, especially across Brimbank, that needs better bus services and active transport, better connectivity, shared user paths, and the delivery of the Western Rail Plan, Suburban Rail Loop and Melbourne Airport Rail Link and the rail width. So all in all, I would like to congratulate Kelvin and his team for an absolutely comprehensive, and I felt it really captured the real spirit of the West of Brimbank. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brandon, would you like to speak to this report?
Yeah, following on from what Councillor Tarkos was saying in terms of public transport connectivity, from memory, one of the points that was highlighted by the officers was the need to have an integrated bus interchange in the Deer Park railway station as that's getting upgraded, as well as more bike paths along that section of road, because at the moment there's no plans for that, which is absurd because we need a bus interchange in there and road and paths so that people can use it safely. So I'm really happy to see what's in this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this report? Councillor Lancashire.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would certainly like to support the words said by Councillor Tarkos and Councillor Branton in this. The work that's been done by the council officers in assessing this substantial document has been very good. It has also, having been to the presentation, I was a little underwhelmed in some of the things that were being put forward. They were, in many cases, just a compilation of historical strategies and not as much forward planning, particularly as mentioned in terms of transport, as I would have liked to have seen. However, the officers have gone through that and in the submission raised a number of improvements and additions. So congratulations to the officers in the work in this. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this report? I'll put this report to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. I declare it carried. I go to 12.8, submission to Heritage Victoria, McKay Memorial Gardens, and John Darling and Sunflower Mill. Mr. Kelvin Walsh, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the purpose of this report is for Council to consider endorsing two submissions to the Heritage Council that supports proposed changes to the Victorian Heritage Register in relation to both the H.V. McKay Memorial Gardens and the John Darling and Sons Flour Mills. The officer recommendation is that Council endorses the two submissions shown at attachment 3 and 4, and also delegates authority to a number of council officers to implement the mechanism of making representations to any hearings of the Victorian Heritage Council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? Thank you. Do I have a mover? Councillor Lancashire.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would certainly like to recommend the officers' recommendation in this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor David.
Second, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Lancashire, would you like to speak to this report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. These items have gone through Council's Heritage Advisory Committee and been supported. They are based on long-standing aspirations for the heritage protection of these areas, the H.V. McKay Memorial Gardens, the extensions to that. This is certainly a significant, very significant park within Sunshine in close proximity to the Sunshine Commercial Centre. And of course, the John Darling and Son Flour Mill is also a significant landmark in Sunshine. And I think both of these are to take them to the next level of to the Heritage Victoria as part of that heritage process is certainly a good move. So, and it's something supported by all our heritage groups. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor David, would you like to speak to this report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just very briefly, echo those words by Councillor Lancashire. Indeed, it's a couple of historic type of happenings, and we have to continue keeping the history of the McKay family that and the harvester works that he started many years ago. So it's a very good report, and I too like to thank the officers for moving so quick to try and put the report together and perhaps put those two items in the heritage list. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor David. Would anyone else like to speak to this report, councillors? Councillor Tarkos.
Madam Mayor, yeah, I'd just like to echo those words, but to say that the H.V. McKay Memorial Gardens and the John Darling and Son Flour Mills must be protected. They have a highly significant heritage value. They tell the story and the journey of this city. As Councillor David said, I, for one, am a great believer that all heritage should be protected, but also activated so that it is used by the community currently and best serves our community. I fully endorse this submission by council officers as a key and important process to register both as significant heritage values for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this report? I'll put this report to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. Declared carried. I'm going to go to 12.9, Governance Report October 2021. Mr. Dan Hogan, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The governance report is a standing item within the monthly council meeting agenda. It is predominantly a summary of recent governance and operational activity written in compliance with the Local Government Act of 1989 and 2020. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? Thank you. And do I have a mover of this report? Councillor Kerr.
Yeah, I'd like to move the report as per the business papers. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tarkos.
I'd like to second the report as per business papers. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr, would you like to speak to this report?
No, thank you, Madam.
Councillor Tarkos, would you like to speak to this report?
Yes, I'd like to just, as the Councillor for COVID Response and Recovery Portfolio, I'd just like to give a report back to the effects of the pandemic and how far-reaching and ongoing the situation is. I'm sure everyone welcomes with relief the easing of restrictions from this Friday, but with large case numbers, we cannot ease up on our response to the pandemic. Support is available for Brimbank residents through government, council and community organisations. I was very pleased to hear about the Port Pandemic Operations Response Team, which has been operational now for approximately 3 to 4 weeks. The Port is one team overseeing all community response operations with clearly defined roles and responsibilities. Through Port, a coordinated effort delivers Brimbank's contracted pandemic response, which oversees food relief, provision of testing and vaccination locations at council, owned or operated sites, and utilises local networks to promote and encourage testing and vaccination take-up. We are delivering strong communications and community engagement with targeted messages to individuals and groups within the Brimbank community. We are using community partners, including faith and cultural leaders, influencers, established community groups for delivery. We are delivering quick wins with frequent updates to our web, social pages, messaging through things like email and signature messaging. We are identifying and targeting and tailoring communication, included in translations of Vietnamese, Chinese, Greek, and soon Arabic and many other languages. Council's ongoing delivery is flexible and responds to the changing community need and daily cases. Yesterday, Brimbank is still the 4th highest LGA with 149 cases. Above us are Casey, Hume and Greater Dandenong. Melton is 6th. Vaccination. Thank you. As of yesterday, 86.3% of Brimbank's eligible residents have received their first dose. 58.6% of eligible have received the second. We are still quite a long way behind Victorian average. Brimbank is supporting the ongoing push of vaccination through pop-ups in centres and locations. Premier pop-ups are St Albans, Sunshine, static for 3 weeks for first doses, school pop-up sessions in Copperfield College, Sydenham, and also Sunshine College on the 26th and 28th of November. Mini pop-up sites include 20 to 40 vaccinations each session. Community information sessions cover general information for schools, industry, faith, sports, and other groups. The Pandemic Connector program is still operational as well, with food relief, culturally appropriate food options, face masks and other essential items, and even getting people to vaccination appointments.
Thank you, Councillor Tarkos. Would anyone else like to speak to this report, councillors? Councillor Lancashire.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And very briefly, as Portfolio Councillor for Brimbank Innovation, which also includes Councillor Nguyen, this report includes governance and probity. I would like to highlight the importance of this monthly governance report to Council. This report provides ongoing transparency to our community on the way we conduct our governance. This month contains a range of important reports, including exercise delegated authority and delegates and representative reports. I commend this report to Council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this report, councillors? I put this report to vote. All in favour, please you raise your hands. I declare this report carried. I'm going to go to 12.10, early years facilities review. Ms. Lindley Dunmore, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Brimbank Community Services and Infrastructure Plan adopted in 2018 recommended 5 new children and community centres to be built over the next 15 years.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? Thank you. Do I have a mover of this report? Councillor Borg?
I'll move the report as per business papers.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nguyen?
Yes, I would like to second the motion as per business papers.
Thank you. Councillor Borg, would you like to speak to this motion?
Yes, I do, Madam Mayor. As champion of the People portfolio, I am very pleased to speak to this report. Brimbank Council is committed to early years education. In 2018, Brimbank City Council adopted the Brimbank Community Services and Infrastructure Plan 2018-2038, known as CSIP, which provides direction on future community infrastructure requirements. This CSIP recommends that 5 children's and community centres be built over the next 15 years. Since then, the Victorian government has committed to implement 3-year-old kindergarten for all Victorian children. From 2022, 3-year-old children in Brimbank will have access to 5 hours of a funded kindergarten program each week, increasing to 15 hours per week for 40 weeks of the year by 2029. Taking part in a quality kindergarten program at an earlier age leads to positive effects on child development. It has even greater benefits for children who need extra support or are in vulnerable circumstances. Evidence shows that 2 years are better than 1 when it comes to early learning. The introduction of 3-year-old kindergarten will require additional early years infrastructure. The draft Early Years Facilities Review guides Council to ensure the provision of quality early years infrastructure that meets demand across the municipality. The review makes recommendations around how the 5 facilities already planned can meet community need, as well as additional infrastructure that will be required. I commend this report to Council.
Thank you, Councillor Borg. Would anyone else like to speak to this motion? Or Councillor Nguyen, would you like to speak to this? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would also like to commend the report here on increasing the number of places available for children and having access to early education. As we're all aware, Melbourne's population is growing, and therefore a lot of young people are coming on the way. So yeah, it said in a report there about like over 1,000 people, well, young kids will need to have places as they're not met demand. So I'm really happy that there's a review that's been done by Lindley and the team to identify which areas need more services. And as what Councillor Borg said before, the earlier we can get into the brains of young children and develop them all, the better they have at having a successful future in life. And it's really pleasing to see that the 5 planned centres are going ahead, but also we're identifying here places for additional infrastructure to increase the number of places available, and also seeing if we need to improve places with major refurbishment to ensure our centres are fit for purpose. And yeah, I just really commend this report. It's going to help a lot of young people in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Nguyen. Would anyone else like to speak to this report? Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, as a father of 5 children, ranging from 4 to 10, I totally welcome this Brimbank early year facility review, and it pretty much hit the ball on the head. Without a review, I could have told you where cities needed required. We already the parents I've spoken to, and as two councillors mentioned, our municipality is developing, that democratic expanding. Councils should consistently review and ensure the community needs are met, and that of facility and service, suitable service for the communities. I welcome the finding, and it greatly reflects community response and I have received and I've experienced. The recommendation will help to bring older facilities in socio-economic disadvantaged pockets within our municipality up to date in line with the rest of the area. So I really welcome the report, and it did highlight certain facilities who are inadequate, and it has been reshuffled and put those up to list. So I really welcome the report, and I do commend the report. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak to this report, councillors? Councillor Papalia.
Just to say that I'm really proud of the team, and I really do commend this report. It is something well needed. And yeah, that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, councillors? I'll put this report to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. Declare it carried. I'm going to go to 12.11, final draft report for Brimbank Neighbourhood Houses and Community Centre Strategy Partnership Agreement. Ms. Lindley Dumble, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The final draft Brimbank Neighbourhood House Strategic Partnership Agreement 2022 to 2025 articulates a statement of shared values, vision and commitment to working in partnership with 10 council and community managed neighbourhood houses. The final draft Brimbank Neighbourhood House Strategic Partnership Agreement at attachment 1 to this report, and final draft Brimbank Neighbourhood Houses Strategic Partnership Action Plan at attachment 2 are presented tonight for council to consider adopting. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? Do I have a move of this motion or this report? Councillor Takos.
Move the report as per business papers. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Boer.
I second the report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Takos, would you like to speak to this report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. These 10 neighbourhood and community facilities play a very key role, like our libraries, in connecting and enhancing and strengthening the community. I would, in particular, like to speak about one of those, and that is the Tin Shed based in St Albans, which is very close to my heart. Earlier this year, the Tin Shed was relaunched earlier this year with James Dredge being the manager. Currently, the Tin Shed supports some of our most vulnerable people in the community with food, support hampers, other types of classes and outreach. It also houses an outreach service called Inspire Hope, which does some incredible work. The other day, I popped by to say hello and was pleased to hear that Inspire Hope, through its networks, is able to house some of the most vulnerable, at-risk people that are sleeping rough through a rental in our community. There was a great sense of achievement in what they've achieved, and also that they reached out to me to ask that if the community can help out with some linen, blankets, towels, crockery to help set up this new home. Can I just say, when I put this message out, I was overwhelmed completely by the community wanting to reach out and to help other people that are starting a new life in a new home. This is what our neighbourhood houses and our facilities is all about: connection, assisting people, and some of the most vulnerable people to feel part of this community. And that's what that they represent, is that connectivity. This is just a small portion of what I'm sure other councillors will describe as the positive work done by neighbourhood houses. But I cannot underestimate or say enough good things about the Tin Shed during these difficult and very challenging times in rising up and helping people with food, with clothing, and ultimately with housing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Takis. Councillor Borg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In my role as Brimbank People Portfolio Champion, I have been privileged to see firsthand the great work that is achieved through our Neighbourhood Houses programme. Brimbank Council Neighbourhood Houses provide opportunities for people at all stages of life to connect and learn, strengthen cultures and identities, and build a sense of belonging in individuals and groups. I would like to take a moment to commend the truly inspiration work rolled out through the neighborhood houses since the COVID-19 global pandemic first impacted us in March in 2020. Our people and houses have been responding directly to the needs of the Brimbank community and diversified its offerings, including a food security program providing thousands of Brimbank residents with fresh food, hardship support, and intensive educational and mental health support for children and young people. The Brimbank Neighbourhood House Strategic Partnership Agreement and Action Plan 2022-2025 is a roadmap for an exciting and continuing transformation of council-managed neighbourhood houses and community centres into sites of belonging and learning for all. I commend this report to council.
Thank you. Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this report? Councillor Dane.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just echo Councillor Board and Councillor Takos. The neighbourhood house is very important to connect people and strengthen the community. So well done, Brimbank Council Neighbourhood House, and especially during the pandemic time. And thank you for all your hard work to support the community. I recommend this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nate. Anyone else? I put this report to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. I declare this report carried. We'll go to 12.12, Sydenham Park Master Plan, October 2021 update with Mr. Neil Whiteside. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In March 2020, Council adopted the Sydenham Park Master Plan and authorised further studies and investigations subject to the annual budget to inform further development and implementation of the master plan. As part of the 2020-2021 annual budget, Council allocated funding to undertake the following studies and investigations: a Cultural Heritage Management Plan summary report, Robinson's Homestead feasibility study, a flora and fauna assessment, and also park access infrastructure design. The purpose of this report is for Council to receive an update on the implementation of the Sydenham Park Master Plan, including the outcomes of the various studies and investigations completed in 2020-2021, and consider endorsing the draft Sydenham Park Master Plan Addendum Update 2021 for community consultation for a 4-week period. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? Do I have a mover of this motion? Councillor Lancashire.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to move an alternate motion, if that could be displayed on the screen, please. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The alternate motion is that Council notes the update on the implementation of the Sydenham Park Master Plan to date, including the completion of a Cultural Heritage Management Plan summary report at attachment 1 to this report, the Robinson's Homestead feasibility study at attachment 2 to this report, the flora and fauna assessment at attachment 3 to this report, the park access infrastructure design at attachment 4 to this report, and the preparation of a draft Sydenham Park Master Plan Addendum Update Report 2021 at attachment 5 to this report, detailing the proposed changes to the Sydenham Park Master Plan 2020. Endorses the draft Sydenham Park Master Plan Addendum Update Report 2021 at attachment 5 to this report for community consultation for a 4-week period, and invites written submissions subject to the draft Sydenham Park Master Plan Addendum Update Report 2021 being amended to show a third multi-purpose sports field located on the western side of the main entry to Sydenham Park, noting the alignment of the shared user path in this area could be amended if in the future, if required, and ensure that local sporting groups, including submitters to the Sydenham Park Master Plan review, be advised of this consultation. Part C receives a further report outlining any submissions made on the draft Sydenham Park Master Plan Addendum Update Report 2021 at attachment 5 to this report as amended, and presenting a final report, Sydenham Park Master Plan Addendum for consideration for adoption, Brimbank Council meeting as listed, and the other notes as per the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder to the amended motion? Councillor Liu.
I'll second the amendment to you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Lancashire, would you like to speak to your amended motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. My involvement with Sydenham Park goes back about 20 years. There have been several attempts to sell off parts of Sydenham Park. My first involvement was with a community group to stop such a sale. The sale was to, in fact, Peter Brock, who wanted to purchase part of the park for a driver training course. I think Councillor David might even recall this from that time. I remember speaking to Bob Jane about the proposal because a similar facility was occurring just in the Calder Park Raceway. And interestingly, Bob Jane said, look, Peter Brock was a fantastic racing driver, but his finances, abilities weren't that good and it won't go ahead. Needless to say, the sale didn't go ahead. And out of this process came the 2004 strategy for the park, which adopted by council and included several sporting grounds in the flat area were proposed. These never got built. The proposed update includes a number of major improvements, including compliance with the Borough Charter requirements for Robinson's Homestead. The Borough Charter, of course, talks about restoring heritage buildings and keeping them in their place and repurposing the buildings. Compliance with that, as in recommended in this report, is a very welcome recommendation, and to see that one of our oldest buildings to be preserved and repurposed. Another improvement, quite significant improvement in this report, is to keep the golf course intact. The earlier adopted policy talked about relocating half the golf course at an incredible cost, and also that would result in the removal of hundreds of mature trees. So just keeping it where it is a fantastic result, given that we have climate change emergency policy, and we certainly want to keep those trees. Deletion of the proposed commercial development across the front of Sydenham Park is also a significant improvement. This was, I suppose, something that I doubt would ever have occurred. However, the removal from it is a plus in terms of the policy. And of course, it didn't match with our commercial development policy, which didn't provide for commercial development on that site. Council Sports Facility Development Plan requires an additional 12 facilities over the next 10 years. One thing the councillors did was they asked the question, where would those 12 facilities go? And this was an important piece of research undertaken by staff, and they nominated sites across the municipality of where these 12 facilities would be placed, including things like football, soccer, cricket, rugby grounds. Now, that research showed that there'd be 3 fields to be provided on Sydenham Park. Accordingly, the alternate motion is aimed at increasing the number of sports facilities shown on the plan from 2 to 3 to achieve compliance with this earlier needs and location research. As to the issues raised, I would make the following comments. The third field could easily comply.
1 minute.
Thank you. With the airspace lighting requirements by the use of baffled or beam-directed lighting, therefore complying with the airport requirements in regard to the proposed proposed zone for grassland species, or the grasslands farm where we would collect seed. There is a massive area provided for that, which constitutes a massive component area of the park. I think to allow one additional oval, which would represent about 2% of the park, would not be in any way detrimental to that proposal. As such, I think given that there's been a huge interest by sporting groups in having those facilities there, I would certainly recommend.
Thank you, Councillor Lynch.
Thank you.
Councillor Liu, would you like to speak to this motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say congratulations to the officer who's put the report together. It's quite comprehensive and quite detailed. And it outlined all the heritage management and the feasibility studies regarding the park itself. I support Councillor Lancshire's amendment. Due to that, it hasn't deviate from the officer recommendation, other than just an extra sports oval on the west side, and it also hasn't really any major impact on the area itself. So I do support the recommendation and commend the officer for its very detailed report and its all the attachment involved. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Liu. Councillor Takos?
I would like to vote against this amendment, Madam Mayor. I've listened to the arguments about the additional sports ground that Councillor Lancashire said won't have any impact. Can I just say that it will? Because with every additional sports ground, you require a path and you need parking. We've gone to extensive lengths to prepare this amazing report, which is comprehensive and details the importance of retaining this particular space as conservation space and not sports facility space. I understand that Councillor Lancashire in the previous term pushed this sports agenda for facilities, and we also made a failed attempt for the Matildas bid. This council has spent so much time working with our elders to ensure that this particular conservation space is mapped properly. And with the no dig policy, I respect the importance that this particular parcel of land is protected for our community as conservation and not as a sports facility. And when Councillor Lancashire talks about the need for sports facilities, I can assure you that there are other parts of Brimbank that are in need of far more sports facilities than this part. And to actually be discussing this with sports clubs without consulting the council is, I feel, not respecting the rest of the council. This particular report needs to be commended. It is comprehensive. It covers the unique and very special place that this place. I've been involved as a volunteer with Sydenham Park for over 10 years. And the volunteers that have put their hard work in planting and protecting, with sports facilities come people, with people comes litter, comes dogs. People love the fact that kangaroos can hop around there, and by bringing more and more intervention into this space, those kangaroos will disappear. And this will no longer be the special place that it is. So I am against this particular amendment, and I support the current council report as it stands. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor David.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, as the portfolio council for livable Brimbank, which includes urban design and recreation, I'm pleased to speak to this report. The Sydenham Park is council's largest conservation reserve. It is extreme significance. It is an integral part of the Maribyrnong River and Jackson Creek ecosystem. Not only is a place of extreme beauty and outstanding views, it has a diverse history. In November 2017, Council established a Sydenham Park Master Plan Steering Committee, which included community members to provide input into the development of a new Sydenham Park Master Plan. Community consultation was undertaken in 2020, and further community consultations proposed on the draft Sydenham Master Plan addendum update in 2021. The report notes an update of the implementation of the Sydenham Park Master Plan to date and actions going forward. I look forward to the opening of Sydenham Park community consultation. And indeed, the reason why I support this amendment by Councillor Lancashire is, for me, I was very adamant to see that the homestead stay where it is and repair. That was my aim. The rest of it, I'm not very enthusiastic, but the homestead, I want it to be repaired where it is. After all, it's like shifting my house in Taylor's Lakes and say, leaving the same address. Is not. We have to leave it there. We have to make sure that it stays there and repair it. That's all, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor David. Councillor Bourke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will be voting against the alternate motion. Sydenham Park is a significant asset, and so its future development. Quite a number of significant elements are incorporated in this draft master plan. Sports facilities, Robinson's Homestead, wildlife and ecology, and Aboriginal heritage. I do not approve of a third oval sport. Sydenham Park is primarily a conservative reserve that needs to be preserved and not hijacked by sports facilities. I therefore will not be supporting this amended motion.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this motion? Councillor Brenton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The reason cited in this report for removing that third oval from the plans One of the reasons is to limit the environmental impact, because that is an area of significant grassland ecology, and there are Aboriginal history and artifacts there, and there was extensive work done identifying where they are. When the councillors went out there to see the site, we got to see an eagle so close. That won't happen. The more light pollution you put there, the more people who go there, the more cars and dogs that are there, the animals that use that space won't be there if we keep adding more and more. And this is supposed to be a conservation reserve for a wedge-tailed eagle. That's amazing. That's probably one of the closest places you would see that to Melbourne. And the idea of trying to instead work more towards more sports ovals when there's already going to be two, it's insane to me. There's other places we can definitely put sports ovals. It probably in places that need them more. I don't support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Brenton. Anyone else would like to speak to this motion? If not, Councillor Lancashire, you have a right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The 2004 plan included, I think, 10 or 11 sporting facilities there, which have been removed. We've gone from providing a major conservation component of the 2004 plan and the sporting facilities to significantly extend the conservation portion of the site. The third oval constitutes about 2% of the site area. So a massive portion of in fact, the vast bulk of the site retains native grasses, trees, unaffected. Even the golf course, except where you have the greens, the landscaping around there is a significant section of native grasses and trees. The site that's there is talked about proposed grassland. So we're talking about a small portion, thank you, a small portion of that site being set aside for that third oval, which was also proposed in the current policy. So we don't have something, it was in terms of the community and our young people and their sporting needs, the proposal that's there is undercooked, and it would result in potential delays to the implementation of the plan if we don't include the third oval. Because if
Point of order, Madam Mayor, in what ways will it will delay to actually include it, Councillor Lancashire? Point of order there, thank you.
You're on mute, Branko.
Sorry, Councillor Lancashire, you've got 20 seconds left.
Thank you. And in terms of, I guess, what's proposed there, it maintains a massive vast amount of conservation land, minor proposal to add that third ground in. But in terms of, as I said, the delay, we would have to go out on further consultation. If council decided to add a third in at the end of the consultation in our February meeting, we could see further significant delays to this proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Lancashire.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I put this motion to vote. Councillor Nguyen?
Hi. Can I actually just ask a question to the director? I suppose my question here is, if we were to add a third sports field, like how much of the area percentage-wise would that actually take up? And look, if we go ahead with the original proposal, which was to conserve that area for grasslands, like, does that not preclude the possibility of potentially putting a third sports field far in the future if we so determine that we need it?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through Madam Mayor, Councillor Nguyen, the exact details of what space we're talking about, obviously it would have to be calculated. I can't provide that tonight. That would be something that I'd have to come back to councillors on. In relation to the second part of the question, ultimately it's up to council to determine the future use of Sydenham Park, whether that's now as part of this process or in the future there might be a change. So there's nothing to preclude council in the future determining that they want to add a third oval if that's what council wants to do. And equally, there could be other changes potentially as well. So ultimately, council, as the owner of the land, would be able to make decisions as they see fit in relation to Sydenham Park Master Plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions for directors before we go to voting? And can I ask amended motion to be shared again before we go to vote on it? Thank you. I put this motion to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands.
Sorry, point of clarification, are we voting? Can we just get clarification? Are you putting up the amended?
Yes, that's correct. That's what we were talking about. Yep.
For the amended.
Yes, so I am putting amended motion to vote. So all in favour, please raise your hands. Well, I declare this motion lost. So we're going to go to officers' report now. Or if someone else has got a amended motion to officers' report. So councillors, does anyone want to move a motion? Councillor Liu.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'll move as per business paper.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lancashire. Are you seconding it per business papers?
Yes, Madam Mayor, as per the business papers. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Liu, would you like to speak to this motion?
Yes, like I said before, it's Madam Mayor, thank you. Like I said before, it's a very detailed report. I commend the officer to report, and there were very little other than the amendment, just the oval. So I fully support the officer's recommendations. I commend the report. Madam Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lancashire, would you like to speak to officer's report?
Yes, briefly, Madam Mayor, the Sydenham Park, as indicated, is certainly something that I think it's our largest park. It's I think our most significant park, and its development as proposed, things from Robinson's Homestead, the golf course, the recreational facilities and the conservation elements make it a massive asset for our community from a conservation, tourism and recreational point of view. So it'll be good to see this go out to public consultation, and I would certainly encourage all members of the community to have a good look at the proposal and give us feedback on what they think. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to the 12.12 report? Councillor Borg.
Just to say, Madam Mayor, that a lot of diligent work has gone into this master plan, and I am happy to support it. I'm very much looking forward to the community feedback.
Thank you, Councillor Borg. Would anyone else like to speak to it? Councillor Takis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I would like to speak to it. As a former member of the Sydenham Park Master Plan Steering Committee, I'm really thrilled to support and endorse this 2021 update and iteration of what is an exciting next phase after the biodiversity and Indigenous mapping. And The shared user path is in progress, and the path will also introduce many visitors who will come and view this spectacular and pristine aspect of the Jackson Creek Valley, the tributaries and the confluence where the Maribyrnong River starts. This is indeed a very special and exciting and long-awaited master plan document, which really captures the intended use of Sydenham Park, and that is for cultural and biodiversity preservation and gentle respect of what it is and the magnificence and the reserve and the respect that it deserves to be protected and conserved for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, does anyone else want to speak to this report? I will put this report to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. I declare this motion carried. I'm going to go to 12.13, contract number 21/3032, MAV supply and delivery of 4 suction street sweepers. Mr. Neil Whiteside.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider awarding contract number 21/3032 MAV supply and delivery of 4 suction street sweepers, which forms part of the annual budget. Based on Council's current practice for financing of vehicles and items of plant over 300,000 is to lease the vehicles. It's proposed a separate tender would be completed for the lease. It's proposed that a delegation be provided to the Chief Executive Officer to approve and sign the lease agreement and any other associated documents for the financing of the 4 suction street sweepers. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the Director? Do I have a mover of this report? Councillor David.
Move the report as read in the business paper, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Papalia.
I second the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor David, would you like to speak to this report?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Papalia, would you like to speak to this report?
No, thank you.
Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this report? We'll put it to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. Declare it carried. I'm going to go to 12.14, contract number 21/3064 ITT meal supply with Ms. Lindley Dumble. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council provides a home delivered meal service to residents who are assessed under the Home and Community Support Program and the Home and Community Care Program for younger people. Council receives funding in the form of a meal subsidy from the Commonwealth and Victorian governments under the above programs to provide meals to clients of the service. This report presents to Council the outcomes of the tender evaluation and seeks Council's consideration to enter into contract number 21/3064 ITT meal supply. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. Are there any questions for the Director? Do I have a move of this motion? Councillor Borg.
I'll move the motion as per business papers.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Takos.
I second as per business papers. Thank you.
Councillor Borg, would you like to speak to this motion?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Takos, would you like to speak to this motion? Sorry.
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this motion? Councillor David.
Madam Mayor, very briefly, this is a wonderful initiative that Council does. The Meals on Wheels early morning. That's a wonderful thing. I've done that trip myself once with the officers, and I saw the faces of those people waiting to pick up their meals. It's a fantastic initiative, and I congratulate the officers for coming up with this contract again, because we need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this report? I'll put this report to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. Declare this report carried. And I move to item 13, which is notice of motion and there are 3 notices of motion for consideration. Councillors, remind you that the notice of motion must be moved as printed in the papers, and only if seconded can an amendment be moved. So 13.1, Melbourne Airport Community Aviation Consultation Group. Thank you, Councillor Takos.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'd like to share the screen and move the motion as per shared screen. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder of Councillor Takos' motion? Councillor Papalia?
I second the motion, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Takos, would you like to speak to your motion?
Sure, thanks, Madam Mayor. I've brought this important issue to the Council because it goes to the heart of community concerns regarding the new 3rd runway at Melbourne Airport, namely the impact of health and well-being of people impacted by increased noise. We know that Melbourne Airport has reported its commitment to building a 3rd runway at Melbourne Airport and announced its preference for a north-south alignment. The Brimbank community remains concerned about the probable impacts on the city and in particular Keilor community. Of major concern is the anticipated noise impacts and the resulting health impacts associated with the proposed runway. We know that when Melbourne Airport releases the major development plan to support the development of the 3rd runway, there will be a lot of information to support their proposal. A lot of the information will be technical in nature and dense in nature. Expecting the community to digest all this information in a prescribed timeframe required under the Airports Act is very unreasonable. 60 days is simply not enough time for our lay community members to digest the information and form a view. It's not even enough time for professionals to digest this amount of information. It is fair and reasonable to expect the Melbourne Airport in good faith to release health impact assessment reports early before they release the MDP and master plan, so we can understand them, so we can consult with our community and support our community. Then we and the community will have a stronger basis for engagement. My notice of motion calls on the Melbourne Airport to seize this opportunity to reach out to us and discuss future noise impacts on the Keilor and surrounding communities before the MDP is released. It is important to discuss noise impacts and what mitigation actions will be taken. It is important to have the discussions early so that communities have ample time to digest the technical information and properly understand what the proposed 3rd runway means to them. It is important to provide ample time for communities to digest to make sure that the dense and technical information is broken down. A far more open and transparent process is required now to assure our community that the net noise impacts will not severely impact on the livability, health and well-being of our communities in Brimbank. Therefore, I commend this notice of motion to Council and ask for the support of my fellow councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Takos. Councillor Papala, would you like to speak to this motion?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I can agree more with Councillor Takos. This 3rd runway and the idea of a 3rd runway is already causing anxiety amongst our community, particularly our residents of Keilor. It's hard to understand what the noise impacts and things are going to be now when we're in a COVID environment and have been for such a significant time, when it's not front of mind and you're not sort of experiencing that every day. You tend to forget exactly what that means. And I think the MDP or the period, the consultation period is definitely not enough. Similar to what happened with the landfills, the community were presented with so much information, nobody understood it, and it took time to digest and consultation and conversations for people to actually understand what's happening in their area. This can potentially affect children's learning. And I just think, yeah, we definitely want to see earlier consultation and the impacts understood. Thanks. I commend Councillor Takos for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to Councillor Takos' motion? I put this motion to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. I declare this motion carried. Can I go to item 13.2, Grants Commission funding? Councillor Lancashire, thank you. You're on mute.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could we have the notice of motion up on the screen, please? Thank you, Madam Mayor. The notice. Oh, we've lost it. The notice of motion.
Can we put it back on the screen, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The notice of motion is that Council writes to the Municipal Association of Victoria, ALGA, the federal government members, including the Prime Minister, Assistant Minister for Local Government, Victorian senators who are members of the government, member for Fraser, member for Gordon and member for Cornwall, advocating that the federal government increase the pool of funds available for the financial assistance grants, which will be passed on to the Victorian Local Government Grants Commission and other state grants commissions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder of this motion? Councillor Lou?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Lancashire, would you like to speak to your notice of motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we all had the pleasure of sitting in with the Grants Commission as they gave their presentation as to how they determine grants. And it was, I think, a very valuable session for councillors to participate in that exercise. When an earlier version of the financial assistance grants were introduced in the 1970s, it amounted to 2% of personal income tax transfers. This was then reduced to 1% of total Commonwealth tax revenue. It is now approximately 5.55% of Commonwealth tax revenue. The current arrangements for financial assistance grants that they were indexed by a combination of the Consumer Price Index and the rate of population growth. However, this determination is that of the Treasurer alone. The quantum of financial assistance grants funding is too low for the increasing responsibilities of local government, and that the indexation methodology does not sufficiently recognise the true cost pressures on councils. Council needs to advocate so that the federal government increases the pool of funds available to all councils, and to make sure that the pool is not decreased in future years. Financial assistance grants are a significant source of revenue for council, and we need to continue to advocate so that the pool of funds provided by the federal government are increased, and that there should be no decrease in funding when compared to Commonwealth tax revenue. Not to mention the fact that, as we all understand, we have rate capping. So this is another example of where we are being put, and local communities are being put under a dreadful amount of pressure by financial constraints. So I would recommend this notice of motion to my fellow councillors. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Lou, would you like to speak to Councillor Lancashire's motion?
Yeah, thank you, Madam. Very briefly, I concur Councillor Lancashire's motion. This grant is extremely important for all local government, not just ours. It's all local governments. It is especially councils where haven't got revenues for i.e. other incomes coming in. So this is a very important lesson to revenue for council who hasn't got revenue coming from meter parking, etc. sort of thing. So this kind of thing is very important. It's the grant commission. It's distributed evenly across the board. So it's very important this pocket of funding from the federal government maintain at a standard or increase and not decrease for all local governments revenue. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Would anyone else, council, like to speak to Councillor Lancashire's motion? Councillor Borg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would also like to thank Councillor Lancashire for moving this motion. I also attended the meeting with the Victorian Local Government Grants Commission and Brimbank City Council. We were informed that the financial assistance grants are decreasing, while the increase in the national pool of funding for 2021-22 is 3.8%. The annual increase in future years is expected to be lower, reflecting relatively low population growth. Local governments are doing a lot of heavy lifting in all sectors, especially when it comes to family and community services. It is important to advocate the federal government to increase the pool of funds available for the financial assistance grants. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does anyone else wants to speak to Councillor Lancshire's motion? Not. I will put this motion to vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. I declare this motion carried. Councillors, as it's 10 o'clock already, we will need to move a motion to extend our meeting time. Do I have a mover? Councillor Takos.
I move that we extend the meeting time by an extra half an hour. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, do I have a seconder? Councillor David?
I second the extension of time, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favour, please raise your hands. I declare it carried. So we have another half an hour. I'm going to move to item 13.3, retention of planning powers, Canley Development. Thank you, Councillor Borg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to move the motion as per shared screen.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder of this motion? Councillor Nguyen.
I'd like to second Councillor Borg's motion.
Councillor Borg, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I do, Madam Mayor. Development Victoria recently provided an update and briefing to the Curlee community regarding their ongoing development of the area and the proposed Brimbank Planning Scheme Amendment C222. At the community briefing, they advised the community that they wish to rezone the land to enable a range of changes to the development outcomes in the area, and that they are seeking to make the Minister for Planning the responsible authority for specific permits on the site. Development Victoria also advised that they are requesting that the Minister for Planning be the planning authority for the proposed planning scheme amendment. The local community is concerned about the proposed erosion of decision-making by council in relation to the planning and development of Curlee. At last month's council meeting, a number of community members asked public questions about our views. The questions clearly indicated that there is a heightened concern amongst the Curlee community that they would be cut out, and that we, as their representatives, would be cut out also of important decisions about the future of the local area. Both the planning and responsible authority roles generally sit with the local government under the Planning and Environment Act. These roles and responsibilities are a fundamental obligation of local government and of councillors as representatives of their local communities. My notice of motion seeks to make it clear to the Minister of Planning that we do not wish to give up our planning powers, that we see it as our obligation to continue to make decisions in relation to the ongoing development at Curlee and continue to be the planning and responsible authority for the area. I commend this notice of motion to my fellow councillors and seek your support in relation to this important matter for the Kernley community and the broader Brimbank community.
Thank you. Second of the motion, Councillor Newman, would you like to speak to Councillor Borg's motion?
Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to thank Councillor Borg for raising this notice of motion on behalf of the residents in the Grasslands ward. And, also thank you to the other ward councillors for just being really engaged with the community in regards to the concerns in the Kernley development. And it is concerning to us that the Development Victoria is trying to override council's usual authority in terms of planning and development for the area. And I just fully support Councillor Borg's motion to try keep council's control over planning in the local area. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this motion, councillors? Councillor Lancashire, and then Councillor Branton, and then Councillor Tarkos.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would certainly like to thank Councillor Borg for raising this notice of motion, and would like to support the words also by Councillor Nguyen. The loss of planning and responsible authority powers to the state government on any site is unfortunate, because it does a couple of things. It removes the ability of the community to be engaged through their council in the planning process, and it also removes our ability to negotiate the best deal possible. As we know, with planning permits, we can, within the planning scheme, put conditions on permits and try and get better designs and things like that. When it comes to planning scheme amendments, however, we are usually in the box seat, because we can say yes or no. And if we say yes, we can say yes subject to what conditions. It really gives us an enormous amount of authority, power to negotiate the best deal for the community. Removing both of those leaves us fairly powerless and puts us in a very limited position of just being another submitter. And we've seen that this is seems to be increasing and is occurring right across Melbourne. So it is a worry to undertake this sort of practice, and I would certainly support this notice of motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So we had Councillor Nguyen, Councillor Branton, Councillor Tarkos. So.
Sorry, was that me? Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. The community's been really vocal about this and has been ongoing. It hasn't been just one big short and sweet thing. They've been really consistent with their research and bringing some figures forward and keeping the dialogue open. And Victoria's Councillor Borg has really been spearheading the action that we can do to help. And the biggest thing is we need to keep control of we need to stay as the responsible authority. And if the minister is the responsible authority, we won't have a say. So we don't have a say in how many trees are planted, which is what I'm really concerned about, because they're not reaching that 30% canopy cover. And we won't have a say in any of the street, in nothing. So this is the big first step, and I commend this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Tarkos.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to also commend this notice of motion. I think it's really it's great that Councillor Borg has undertaken to bring this and represent her community, and her community has really displayed such unity in the face of this really problematic planning application that is out of our hands, unfortunately. And when it's taken out of council's hands, it creates a real disconnect in the community. The community naturally turn to councillors for support when it comes to any kind of development or planning application. We're the closest people to our community, and they turn to us for support, for facilitation, questions. And Councillor Victoria Borg has really taken that role, along with that community group represented by some excellent community members that I see becoming real community leaders. And they aspire for the best for their community. And that's what this council is about. We've got standards with our planning, we've got regulations, we've got a framework that we adhere to ensure that livability and also responsiveness to the needs of our community is adhered to. But when it's taken out of our hands, we lose that control. We become subject to, plans that don't really respond to what the local community wants and needs. And and things can change as well with pandemics and other things that people don't necessarily want sports facilities that are outlined that they must have. So I commend this notice of motion. I think it goes to the heart of what we as councillors do. And I'd like to congratulate Councillor Victoria Borg and the great community effort and all the grassland councillors for this fantastic notice of motion. Thank you.
Anyone else, councillors, wants to speak to Councillor Borg's notice of motion? Councillor Tui Dang.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just take this opportunity to thank you, Councillor Victoria Borg, to move this motion and echo the other councillor that my councillor board work with the communities, and so I recommend this motion to all the councillors. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, if anyone else wants to speak to it, can I put this motion to vote then? All in favour, please raise your hands. I declare this motion carried. I'm going to go to item 14, notice of motion rescission. There are no rescission motions. So from then we're going to go to item 16, confidential businesses. There are no confidential businesses tonight. Thank you all for attending and for your interest in tonight's meeting. I declare this meeting closed at 10:07 p.m. I instruct host to stop recording this meeting. Thank you. Good night, everyone.